director of Manhattan Neighborhood Network, the public access cable facility here for the Borough of Manhattan in New York. And he's going to bring us up to date on things as far as New York, public access, and maybe on a larger field, national issues that relate to that. And so, without further ado, there will be others coming in, I expect, from past experience. He's going to show us some slides. There'll be others coming in, they'll just blend in the back, and so let's just keep the thing going. And he does have a schedule to keep. There'll be bells ringing, people coming, so put up with that.
It says server found, connected, stop broadcast,
Without further ado,
stop broadcast, start broadcast.
Dan Coughlin, take it away, Dan. You're being recorded.
It says recording.
No, you need to. No, it's all right. It's all right. We have to.
Thank you, Harold. Thank you, Maggie, for hosting tonight in your wonderful living room. Really appreciate you going out of your way to make tonight possible. And it's also a great pleasure to have Stoney here, our MNNnyc board member, as well as Zenada, Mendez, our external director. Director of External Affairs at MNN, who's done a lot of work on the franchising process and a number of other things. What I'd love for you to do tonight is just to walk you through a couple issues at MNN, talk a little bit about how we're doing as an organization, talk a little bit about franchising, which is, I know, something all of us are particularly interested in, discuss a little bit about a new facility that we're building in East Harlem, the East Harlem El Barrio Firehouse, and then look at what are some of the key issues for the organization this year, in 2011. So I just want to start by saying, look, how are we doing? How do we measure? How do we know that we're successful or we're not successful as an organization? Our core mission is to provide the ability to Manhattan residents to exercise their First Amendment rights. Well, how do you measure that? Well, it's pretty simple, really, for us. We're like a public library, but instead of checking out books, we check out cameras, we check out editing stations, we check out studios. So we can measure that fairly readily. We're also an education and training center. That is something also you can measure pretty easily. So in a sense, the First Amendment, we actually measure whether we're successful or not by looking how many people use or how many uses our facilities get every month, every year, every week, every day. So let's take a look at what we did last year, and you can see 2008, 2009, 2010. The blue bars are how many people attended a class at MNN. So last year in 2010 we had 1,508 people, or there was 1,508 attendances at one of our classes. That's quite a lot if you think about it. Columbia Journalism School might have attendance, people coming about 180 students a year, 200 students a year to go to Columbia Journalism School. Obviously, we're not Columbia Journalism School or CUNY grad school, but we have 1,500 people who are taking, or these classes are taken by 1,500 times at MNN. Now, as you know, you have to be certified, you have to test out and pass one of those classes in order to check out equipment or use equipment at the facility. How do we know that you're able to do that? It's called being certified. That you passed a camera class or an editing class or a studio class and can take and can check that equipment out. Well, that's the green chart. So 719 unique people came to MNN last year and passed a class and now are able to use the facility. So that just counts each individual person. Our edit station uses. So we also look at, well, how many people used our edit stations or our cameras or our studios. And we have that. It's very easy to measure. Every time you check out an edit station, you put in your name, you record that. We can actually track how many people did. So this shows in 2008 we had 5,600 edit uses. In 2009, 5,800, and in 2010, 5,500. So it went down a little bit last year from the previous year, but it's quite a number of uses, and I see legislation that is positive towards public access because it's very, Time Warner Cable, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T are in Washington. It's very hard to do battle with them or fight them. Our main issue, one of the main issues that we have in Congress today is something called the ACAP Act, Community Access Preservation Act. You should go to the Alliance for Community Media website, alliancecm.org, learn more about it, and write to your congressman here to tell him or her to support it. That's Nydia Velasquez, Charlie Rangel, Carolyn Maloney, and Jerry Nadler here in Manhattan. What it ensures is that if you're a public access station, you cannot be discriminated against by the cable operator. They can't treat you like a second-class citizen and give you poor technical service or dumb you down to a inferior product. And this is very important for public access channels around the country. You can imagine when we have a problem with a cable operator, we call them up. Who are they going to answer first, CNN or MNN? And I don't need to tell you the answer to that question. We fight every day with the cable operators to be treated just like they treat a CNN or another broadcast outlet. We don't feel that we should be discriminated against because of public access. The second thing the CAP Act does, it eliminates a technicality for those of you who are into this over what is considered capital funding or operating funding. You know MNN is equipment heavy, facility heavy. We have a huge facility on 59th Street. It takes a lot of investment in equipment and new roofs and HVAC, and the list is endless, to keep operating as an institution. Capital support is very important for us. So we're working a lot on the CAP Act. Go to Alliance CM. Zenada is down there in Congress, often working with the local legislators to try to get them to endorse and support the CAP Act. We also have what we call a U-verse petition. AT&T rolled out a brand new cable service called U-verse. We don't see it in New York City, but it's around the country. And they have decided, so if they're in Illinois, what they do is they take all the PEG channels in Illinois, no matter where you are, and put it on something on a Channel 99 service. And you have to go through that Channel 99 like a video on demand and find your town, Northfield, Illinois, or whatever it might be. Click on that, and then find your local public access program. So they're not giving a channel to the local public access stations in Chicago or Northfield or wherever the public access station is, and instead they're dumbing it down on one channel, Channel 99. This is the world's largest telecommunications company. They can afford to treat public access correctly, and yet they continue to discriminate against public access. It's not acceptable, and we filed a complaint with the FCC, and we're in the middle of working with the FCC. And this is another thing Zenada does, goes down, talks to Mignon Clyburn, Michael Cox, Danikowski, Meredith Atwell-Baker, though she's leaving to go join Comcast, and I forget the last FCC person's name. But so we're down there with the FCC trying to get them, again, not to discriminate against public access. And that's with AT&T. We also did battle on the takeover of Comcast NBCU. You read about it, you don't think the public interest is particularly affected, but remember, Comcast is buying NBC local, ABC local, and CBS local. So again, where's their incentive? They want to support their local stations, maybe against other local stations like MNN. We don't want them to discriminate against us in any way, and we want to put language in the agreement for Comcast to take over NBCU that they don't discriminate against public access. And we were very pleased that they did agree some provisions, like, number one, they've agreed to a pilot program for 5 cities around the country, 5 municipalities, to have video on demand service, which is excellent. They've also agreed that they won't degrade the public PEG signals compared to commercial signals. So they'll keep them in pretty decent stead. They've also agreed not to put PEG in what we call a digital Siberia. Too often, if if you're a PEG station, instead of being at channel 34 or 56 or 57 or 67, they're going to put you up at 995. Right? They're very opposed to that, and they would do that by putting you up in the digital tier, not in the analog lower down. And a lot of people didn't have that. So this new requirement that we've been able to get through the FCC with the Comcast merger is to say, hey, you can't put PEG up there in the digital tier and put it into a digital Siberia. And so you have to be on what we call the starter tier, where you have to be the most accessible part of the digital spectrum. And finally, you can't, this is a technical issue, but you can't migrate PEG to a digital playout unless you're 100% digital service. So it's a mixed bag in Washington. There's been a lot of defeats for public access. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You've all heard about them. A lot of PEG centers closing around the country, more than 100, especially in places like California, 50 alone closed down. It's not a pretty picture out in the rest of the country. We're fighting for everybody in Washington. We're fighting the FCC. We're fighting in Congress because we believe that we can't be an island here in Manhattan, that what happens around the country with PEG will at some point inevitably affect us, because the cable operators will say, well, we're not required to do this in California. Why should we do it in New York? It makes us uncompetitive. So this is why it's so important that we continue to fight in Washington. Let me talk a little bit about local franchising. We are pleased that we do have an agreement with Time Warner Cable here in Manhattan. It's a historic agreement. It allows us to do video on demand, and for the first time, a public access channel is going to have HD channel. We will have 2 HD channels, which is thrilling. First time in the country. And we're going to actually get 5 new channels. So it's a very significant agreement. And we're very pleased with that, and we think Time Warner Cable has recognized the importance of public access in the borough to the residents of Manhattan, and they've responded, and we're pleased. However, unfortunately, Cablevision has not come to an agreement yet in the outer boroughs, and until such time as they all come together and agree, we can't move forward with our deal. We do believe that this will move forward in or by September of this year, and so we're hopeful that franchising will move ahead, and that the FCRC, which is a city institution, will approve this deal by September. This is the #1 challenge facing MNN today. We have lived, all of you know, for 3 years off of, as Harold puts it, fumes. 3 years ago, our franchise agreement was due up, but it has not been renewed for 3 years. We're not happy about it, and hopefully it will be rectified in the weeks and days to come. But what we are asking, and I just want to echo what Zenada told everybody at the Mix and Mingle, do keep in mind that you need to call your city council member and let them know how important it is for franchising to happen as soon as possible, because this is how we get our funding, and we're living off a 1998 deal. Time Warner Cable has in fact cut off our capital support, which has cost us $1.2 million. So it's been a tough road for the whole organization the last 3 years, as I know you all are aware. We appreciate your support, but it's imperative now that the city and the cable operators move forward with franchising in an expeditious way. The lack of franchising has cost the residents of Manhattan jobs, community investment, opportunity, education and training, and it's very important that you do call your city council rep and just let them know that you care about franchising and you expect that it's going to get done in the next 3 months. So that's the rough picture that we have around franchising, and hopefully it'll move forward. You all are aware, as I've talked to you all before, about an exciting new venture that we're starting up in El Barrio, East Harlem. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I should say, 13 years ago, MNN made a commitment to have a new satellite facility in Upper Manhattan. It was very important for this board of directors to ensure that MNN abided by its commitments made in 1998 that we would have a facility uptown. And we have spent the last 4 years working on that diligently, trying to create a new facility uptown. We acquired, or MNN acquired, a facility on 104th Street. You all may recognize it. I think many of you have been by there or came into it and have seen it. We're excited that the construction is finished on it. The paint isn't dry. There's still a little bit of ways to go with it. It has to be what we call, the integrators have to come in and put in equipment up there, the broadcast equipment. We still need what's called a CMO, Certificate of Occupancy. You all must know that through the Department of Buildings, which is not necessarily an easy task. Anybody who's been through that process. But we're very pleased. It's a brand new facility. This is important for the future of MNN. MNN is committed to continue to provide service to communities all around Manhattan. We wish that it could open right away. It will have 5 floors, including a cellar, 3 studios. I mentioned the issue around our studios, as that we need more studios for each of you because they're totally jamming. And I'm looking at Gloria because I brought that to my attention.
Where's our report then?
You missed that bit, but we hear everybody loud and clear. We need the studios uptown to relieve some of the pressure at 59th Street. But there's also going to be a youth media center. We'll relocate our youth channel up there. And there will be, of course, edit stations and training facilities and NLE lab. So it is small. It's a neighborhood facility. I just want to warn everybody, it's not as big as MNN. It's half the size as MNN on 59th Street. It's half the size, but it'll be a nice little facility that will play, we hope, a really big role in the neighborhood. But again, I mentioned that we get our revenue from this franchising process. And we are living off an outdated and unsustainable 1998 deal, a 13-year-old deal. To move forward, we need to have this franchising completed. Again, call your city council member, see what you let them know that it's important that franchising be completed as soon as possible, and certainly no later than September. And that's the key to the organization moving forward. So, in sum, our 2011 priorities, I just want to let you know we have franchising, obviously that's key. What happens in Washington is key to us, as well as the ACAP Act. But what's most important to us, and over the last 3 years we've really focused on this, is making sure that MNN, and we do whatever we can, to position the organization to continue to serve its mission, to do what is possible to stay open 70 hours a week, to provide free access to camera, editing, and studios, and to ensure that there's also free access to training. So that is a core commitment on the part of MNN to ensure that our main services at 59th Street stay open, stay focused, and on our core mission, free service to the residents of Manhattan. So in that regard, our digital upgrades, we've talked about some of the other things that are happening. We need to put the studios together, turn our facilities into HD-capable facilities. That's going to be a little bit of a process, as you know, but that's our next big step at 59th Street, is to do an upgrade in our studios and in our control rooms. Also, you'll see probably in about a month or 6 weeks, we really want to improve our website, particularly make it friendly to viewers. People who watch your shows, they want to know what shows are on, they want to know who you are, they want to know how to reach you, and we want to make that easier for people who come to MNN's website. So we'll do that. Those are the key issues for us in 2011, and thank you so much for coming down tonight.
Questions. First of all, if we're getting 5 new channels, does that mean we're going to have more airtime, more air dates that we'll be able to...
You know, we haven't crossed that bridge yet because it's also sequential. all the 5 channels won't come on at the same time. And also another issue is though they're saying it's 5 new channels, 2 of those channels will be HD. And what will happen with the HD channels is they will likely be played in SD and in HD. So they may eat up 2 of those new 5 channels.
We're gonna have to change the format of how we're taping. In other words, instead of doing 720 by 480, we'll have to do 16:9.
Excuse me, yeah, if you want to go HD, yeah, there'll be new technical requirements for that. But we feel like if we can turn the studios into an HD studios, then all the live shows or live tape shows can go on HD, and that will likely be the main source of HD programming. But I do want to caution everybody, going to HD is a big transition, as you all have heard about. It's not just the equipment, it's just not the cameras, it's the capacity of, the memory on your editing machines. It's how you do makeup on set. It's a lot of different things. So it's going to be a big transition. So
And about the audio, because we've been having audio issues on the transmission through Time Warner. And when it goes HD, are they going to integrate the audio into high definition audio, or is it just going to stay like?
yeah, that will be that is something that will have to be discussed with the Time Warner technicians. Josh, sorry, I saw your.
Yeah. What are
Speak
your?
up, everybody, when you can for the audio. Again, speak
Yeah.
up.
What are your feelings about the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and people who want to debate some of our points of view on MNN? Because many of us are out of the box. Even though we document what we bring people, there are people who want to debate us on our positions on the rights of indigenous people, Palestinians, and also their feelings about hemp oil and so on, for and against. What are your suggestions about giving some of our opponents a more solid platform to debate us? And
Well, MNN does not get into the content of anybody's program. MNN supports the First Amendment rights of all producers, no matter the content. So MNN would not necessarily take a position on whether or not you would be, what you should put on your content of your program. We support whatever you put on as long as it's consistent with the First Amendment, as long as it's consistent with MNN policies. We will air it, we will put it on. Gloria.
I'm concerned about the fact
Speak up,
that
Gloria, will you please?
you can't get studio time. The studios has been devoted to a few people, like 5 people, who have used up most of the time by weekly programming and live shows. And anyone that doesn't have a live show or a daily show can't get programming, which I'm one of the old producers and I have problems, plus all the new producers can't do any shows. So we're training people, but they can't get time. And before we had a policy where you could only book 2 bookings at a time. Therefore, right now, someone takes up all the studio time the first day, and they're the same 6 producers. And we had a policy against that, so that we would all get an opportunity to get equal time. That policy has gone by the wayside, and it's not fair, and it's not public access. And I know that the people who are taking advantage of this are happy with what's happening, but it's against public access policy.
Yeah, I know, Gloria, you brought this to the attention of Corey.
I brought it to the attention of everyone, and everybody knows about it, but management doesn't seem to respond.
Well, yeah, it is a tough issue, and I think the solution, as I mentioned, to our studio problem. and
Well,
to
you
the
had a solution, which was when you allowed producers to only book 2 at a time. then everybody had a chance to at least book 2 instead of everyone's booking 4. And not only are they booking 4, but they're selling or they're giving the space away. So
Well, that
that's
should not-
well, that's what's happening. That's not
That should not be
fair.
happening.
Well,
People are
it
doing
happens
that.
because no one can get space and a few people book 4 programs at the beginning.
Well, I would hope that those.
Well, it's happening, so can we do that, can we do something that we solved that solution last time by letting people book 2 at a time?
Well, Gloria, I don't want to get into, to prejudge the issues because it's often a pull me, push you kind of situation.
Yeah, but
which
when
is good.
management came up with the policy of you could only book 2 at a time, so everyone could have an opportunity to book 2 instead of every night being taken of the week.
I hear you, Gloria. We're working to manage that problem and.
But
try
it's
to
a
work-
simple solution. The management before came up with the solution, and it worked. I didn't like it when I came up with
Okay,
it.
I totally, Gloria, I
But it
totally
worked.
understand. All I'm saying is there's pluses and minuses to every decision that you make. And if you want to do things one way, you lose on the other side. But what we are doing is we understand this issue for many years, that the studio times is not available, particularly during
No, it's
critical
only
hours.
recently. It's
And-
only since we started booking and selling the studio.
Okay. Well, we're working on it, and I know Corey's working on it, and we want to make sure that.
Well, it's not
everybody-
Corey's responsibility.
I want to make sure that, everybody has a chance to get into the studio. Your concern is
I
heard loud
thought-
and clear,
Yeah,
Corey.
for
It's heard
for
loud
a
and
year
clear.
now. And what about the tripods that you promised 4 weeks in April and you promised May 15th? They're still not here.
I totally hear you on that. We call them every day. It's an issue with the supplier.
Oh, come on, I can get them in 2 minutes. I
Well,
can get them in 2 minutes, I told
If you
you
can do
that.
that, Gloria, thank you so much. We're working really hard on it.
Well, I can get them
promise
in
you,
2
I ask-
minutes.
I
You
ask
let me
every
get
day.
them and I'll get it. You don't ask, you're just calling.
Thanks, Gloria. Yeah.
Well, I had a question in regards to,
Talk up, please,
I had a
everybody.
question in regards to the editing process. As a producer, I've noticed that when I get to the editing board, trying to manipulate my project, meaning to stream it or to put it even on something simple as to put it to a CD, a file, or files, I'm not able to do that. And I'm just wondering why. I'm running up, I was able to do that before, but I noticed that I feel like I'm being blacked out or
Yeah.
boxed in.
Yeah, this happened when the Mac Pros came in, after the Mac Pros came in.
Yeah, it started happening around that time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very frustrating.
Yes,
Because if you're working on something, then it means that I can only work at it, if I don't have the equipment at home. I'm screwed.
Yeah, I hear you, and we've talked about this before, and I will follow up and see what we can do to try to fix that problem. I think it's actually a software issue, and we have to get some additional software in there, and I know the team was looking at that, but I will follow up for sure on that issue. Sometimes this is what happens when you upgrade different equipment, and I know folks are already talking about Final Cut Pro 10, we want to make that happen, but it is very sometimes difficult to do because you have to upgrade all your systems at once because just one little grain of sand difference between what you had yesterday and what you have today brings the whole machine crashing down. So we have to be careful about it, but I've heard your concern and I will definitely follow up on it as soon as possible. In the back.
If it requires one,
Talk up.
if it requires one piece of software, is it possible that we can go out and buy the one piece of software and hook it into us? with
All
us?
we need is a
And
license.
what would that piece of software be?
For reproducing the video on a DVD you're talking about?
I'm talking about what purpose.
Yeah. I don't know it off the top of my head, but your concern is definitely heard, and we will follow up on that and work on that. So thanks for bringing it to my attention. Sorry.
With the, I heard you say briefly with the training that there was a possibility to test out, and I was told by Stephanie, who's now running the educational program, that there's no more testing out. which is a problem for me if there are professionals coming on board, joining my crew, and they can test out the training.
That's changing, that's changing. There's going to be testing out, and we know that there's a list of test out, and it's going to be changing.
When is that going to be changing, do you know?
I can't give you an exact time. I should, if I'd known I was getting all these questions, I would have brought Steph or Corey here with me. So, but we will look at that.
Once a month, we're gonna start doing it.
Once a month?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
We're gonna start doing it once a month.
Starting when?
We're starting now in June.
And when?
It's coming month.
This coming month, in June?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, probably somewhat what Kirkland was saying, you know, the internet just doesn't ever seem to be, like, whenever I'm trying to upload things, I'm having a really big problem with that. When I'm editing, a lot of drop frames, so then you can't really, it causes a problem on printing. The third thing I wanted to add, well, Cablevision, that's gonna be a rough deal, because Dolan is not, and that whole group, he's, I mean, what are your feelings on that? I mean, he's not budging, is he?
Yeah, on...
He's like the big gorilla sitting there?
Yes,
Right.
we will. On your internet, we're switching out of our internet service provider. We're getting a different internet service provider with more bandwidth. Hopefully we'll see some improvement in the issues that you're going to have in the weeks ahead. On the dropping frames on the editing system, is that Final Cut Pro?
I have a solution to that, since you got the new,
Talk up, Matt.
since we got the new equipment, editing equipment, they have to calibrate the decks and the machines. There is an offset setting, which we did when they got the other thing, which they have not done. Because I just did 6 hours and everything is all chopped up. Everything that I'm doing, there are every 2 seconds I did an analysis. There's a drop frame and it stutters. But it's a simple thing, it's just somebody who knows about it has to do it.
Great. Good, well, I'll follow up on that tomorrow. And then finally, the Dolans and Cablevision. Yes, Cablevision is a very tough cable operator. They obviously have a relationship with the city of New York that may not be the best, particularly because of the situation around the Jet Stadium and the Olympics, which may be a legacy issue that's affecting things. But we are hopeful that our colleagues, particularly in the Bronx and Brooklyn, will be working with Cablevision to try to wrap this process up as soon as possible. Harold.
Yeah, could I, how do things stand, Jeff? If we got started about 1970, is the cable industry still in support of public access? Is it degrading? We heard terrible things about closing down places in California. Everybody's talking budget cuts. Is the cable industry still either contractually or even in their own public relations interests still interested in doing the franchising and support the whole institution of public access across the country? And how many of them that are active now still?
Well, in active, you can go to the ACM website, or even I put out something on the MNN website where you can go and find out how many active public access centers there are around the country. And there's at least close to 3,000.
Okay.
So, and there are public access centers that are opening around the country from time to time. They don't get publicity, but they do open with some regularity in all kinds of municipalities all over the country. I think it simply depends for the cable operator to what extent the local municipality will support public access. It's really a political question because the municipalities have the franchising authority, and if they push hard on the cable operators, then the cable operators will act.
And I also wanted to ask about the training department, educational department. Do you see that we will be getting a lot more different types of training? I mean, like even something like the lighting. We're not able to
On lighting.
manipulate any of our lighting or what have you.
Yes, you
A little
should.
defining because that's a very, very important part and a very interesting part as far as,
And we should be having
production. And I think, it would be great if we would even be allowed to move a light fixture, what have you. I don't know, I know that there is some situation with the ladder and insurance or whatever, but I'm just wondering if they're gonna ever be able to get to that point.
Yeah, that is an issue.
Because even with the light board, the light board is on the board.
We all used to be able to move the lights, get up on the ladder, do the light board. That was stopped about, 6 years ago. And the insurance company insures you. They do not say this is a producer, this is a staff member. So I don't know why they stopped. And I think they stopped just because of bureaucracy. And quite frankly, I don't want to get up on the ladder, but and I don't have a problem with that, all right? But why do they stop people from having access to all the equipment? We no longer have access. The other producers, though, we all had to learn. I had 4 hours of training 20 years ago, and everyone that trained with me, we all learned because we had access to the equipment. Now we have 20 days of training and no one knows anything.
Okay, yes, sorry.
Yeah, Jabari Osaze, research for Medical Legacy today. I wanted to ask two questions. First of all, I know that we're having some issues in terms of actually getting access to space. I think part of the problem, I don't have a problem with the 4 reservations a month because I have a weekly show.
Because you get 4.
I have a weekly show, so it would be difficult for me to do 2 at a time and then get crew. It would just be difficult to do that. But I do believe that some of the problem is around people who are reserving and then not using space. Because I know that it's very difficult to get the open studio, for example. And whenever I'm in the closed studio, open studio is free, which is really strange.
Yeah,
which means that whoever's reserved it is not using it. So there needs to be some sort of, and it may have to be punitive, there needs to be some sort of response in that manner. The two-part question.
Yes.
The other question that I had, I'm going to ask after you sit down. I'm also wondering about whether there's any movement to get some of the satellite cable providers, I guess that's an oxymoron, but some of the satellite television providers to actually provide access to public access stations. I know providers like DirecTV, for example, don't, for example, give us any airtime. And so is there any movement there?
There's not any movement on that side because there's no regulatory requirement that the satellite providers set aside space for local public access, and so therefore they won't do it. But sometimes if a building complex doesn't deal with DirecTV or Dish TV, they may provide the opportunity for a local programmer to wire into their system, into their complex to provide programming, but that's rare.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dee Dee Hallack, and I don't have a time slot, but I work with Paper Tiger and Deep Dish, and this is the first time I've been here, and I just want to thank Harold for doing this. I think it's really important that the producers get together, and I thank Dan for coming out here. Paper Tiger, unfortunately no other members could make it tonight, but we had some problems when Paper Tiger booked the studio, and that the attitude of the technician was hostile, and Paper Tiger was a group that really helped to start public access out of, it used to be at Jim Schlatt's place, and we'd have to pay for it, and thank God we have MNN so that we can do it. We can have these facilities, and it's very important that we keep them up. But to me, the whole purpose is to facilitate and to bring in people who don't have voice, and to help them, and to be supportive of them. And there have been quite a few complaints, and one of the big complaints also was the cutting off of the grants, the community service grants. I have here an incredibly impressive list of all the different groups, like the Active Aging Group, the Reduction Citywide Task Force on Housing, the East Side Biography Group, all the different groups who were encouraged to do programming by getting some very small funding, and I hope that those community grants will be reinstituted.
What is the possibility of the grants fund being renewed?
Well, I think, George, as a board member, I think you appreciate and understand the board and myself that this is a major priority for the organization going forward. It was a program that was put on hold regrettably in summer of 2008. I know everybody is committed to it and to making it better and stronger than it's ever been in the past. And that's for sure my own commitment as well. Dee Dee quite rightly points out dozens and dozens of organizations that got support from MNN over the last 19 years, and they are worthy groups and they produce excellent programming, and that's a program that we should restart. I have to just rewind just a little bit to again say that in 2008 we had a perfect storm affect MNN. We weren't getting our franchise even though we were promised it. We had the economic crisis. We had cuts in foundation grants and support for our programs. So we had to make some decisions back in 2008 and 2009 and 2010 that were tough decisions. They were not popular decisions, but we had to make sure that we had the ability to meet our core public access obligations, and in particular, keeping our services open and free 70 hours a week, 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year. So I totally hear you, Dee Dee, and it's an issue that has to be resolved, and I know will be resolved for sure in a way that's better and stronger than ever before.
Well, the other thing that people have come to me very distressed about is the fact that there are people within your staff that are actually selling time and selling equipment on the channel, and a lot of times the complaints I've gotten is that the good cameras are booked on the weekends because that's when this individual has his business. And I think when I looked at the rules and regulations, it was very clear that not even staff, let alone, but just anybody is not supposed to be doing commercial work with public access equipment and public access studio time. So I can't imagine what the reaction should be, but it seems to me this is something the board needs to take up, about the fact that a staff member is actually utilizing some of the youth media people to make his programs. He's using equipment, he's using editing time, and because he's a staff person, he has privilege. And I think that really needs to be completely eliminated in order to ensure a kind of democratic process within the channel. And also, I feel like it's great that there'll be some HD, but I've visited dozens of public access stations around the country, and many of them have a kind of graduated access, so that there's a studio that's really easy to use, that is a user-friendly studio, and then others that are more high-end. And I just feel like the whole thing is so high-end now. Even like when Paper Tiger tried to use it, it was like, well, but the technician who was there didn't even know how to use it. So I think that there needs to be a real assessment so that the studios are really user-friendly and accessible to everyone, and also the rules and regulations are clear.
Thank you.
And also I'd like to make a
Well, look, it is absolutely unacceptable if there's any staff member at MNN who are using MNN equipment for commercial purposes. It's not acceptable, period. And if this is happening, there will be swift and decisive action taken. It is not acceptable. I want to absolutely say that. That is not acceptable. And if anybody in this room has any evidence of such activity, I urge them, please bring it to me immediately. It's totally unacceptable and should not be happening.
What about
Obviously.
MNN selling the studio time to that gentleman with the kiss and ass job?
No,
You have a way with words.
MNN for years has rented out studio time in off hours to a variety of different productions, commercial,
They are
otherwise,
here
so we do that.
on-
That is
on
permissible by our
producer's time.
policies. No,
They are
should
here
not.
on producer's time. They're here when I'm here.
Well, that should not happen.
Well, it is.
It should not happen, Gloria, and I will double check to make sure it
Well,
doesn't happen.
everyone here can tell you who uses the studio can tell you it's going to happen.
Gloria, you can bring that to my attention and I'll certainly look at it.
Everyone has brought it to your
No,
attention.
no, Gloria, it is our policy, we follow our policy on
Well,
studio
you
rental.
told me you had to rent it out to make money.
Gloria, we do rent various studios from time to time on a commercial basis in off hours, and that does happen in order to generate revenue for M&N, yes.
This is not off hours, the guy is here every day.
But just for clarity, just if I can say something for clarity to that. I don't believe that he's renting time right now. I believe that he's actually operating as a regular public access producer at this moment. But I can say, to what Gloria is saying, let me finish. To what Gloria is saying, I know that when he was renting time, what would happen is he would rent in off-hour time, and it would bleed into producers' registered studio time, and that was a problem because he was actually renting. I think he felt that he could just do whatever he wanted, and then so for folks who were, for example, putting on live shows and really need to get into the studio and set up, he would still be there and he'd kind of be just wasting time. So it is a concern that you probably need to.
Thank you. We certainly will make sure that any rentals do not impact in any way the normal operation of the facility.
Right, as long as they end when regular studio time begins.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
No question. Who hasn't spoken yet? Because
What was the total that M&N received as rental studio for rental?
15,000 a year, 10, 15,000 a year?
What was the question?
What was the
What
total?
was the question?
What are the total revenues from M&N studio rentals a year?
Oh,
This is more of a minor question, so Vivian's asking more other questions. But on your web facelift, is there a way you can make your mega files search a little bit more, a little bit more inclusive, that if someone's searching a name, it's not just the title of your show. When we fill out those forms, I can only put enough room for a 24 character title. So someone who doesn't remember my show but remembers my name, they can't find my show. And other search subject matters. When we fill out those forms, they're very limited. They're under talk show, they're under maybe lifestyle. I don't even think that category is there. Or health and fitness, some more categories, some more Google mega things. And also just a way that there's some kind of list that is on the website. Like when I went to look for a hard drive for the studio, I couldn't believe that there was just nothing written for new producers on what to get. And I got so many different answers until I finally found the right information. Or last week when I was in Open Studio, I show up at the time of the studio and I was only told I need 4 AA batteries for the remote microphone. So can there just be a list that is for producers so we don't have to rewrite a lot of things that the producers need, that the studio needs from us, and even if,
You're talking about a list of technical issues?
yeah, like here's a hard drive that you will need to save your editing station. These are the requirements that our Macintosh requires you to have.
A tech spec
A
sheet.
tech spec sheet, and things like that. If you're going to use so-and-so equipment, these are some of the things that you need. some simple stuff like that. And also if there's a possible sort of blog web page that can be attached to the web facelift in which us producers can give some information and help each other, so we don't have to rewrite some things.
On the
On some
text
of our
thing.
experience, let's say in the studio itself, like here, if you want to turn off the mics when you're at camera and you're recording and you want to talk to the control room but you want to be heard, this is what you press. This is how you edit, just different advice that we can exchange, that we want to offer as producers, we have experience with, we can put it on a site, it's there, sort of a library, and other people could use it.
And it's useful for the technicians who work there, because most of them don't know those things either.
Okay, who hasn't spoken yet? No, who hasn't spoken
This
yet?
is a very mundane question. Is there a change of policy recently as to how these points are awarded to these? Because I'm very new here, I'm just learning, I don't know all the issues, but lately there has been some shakedown as to, well, if you have only a bi-weekly show, you get only so many points, and just that's kind of it, because I rent the equipment, take outside, and the final cut that was taught to us was very, very quick. So we are learning as we are doing, so it takes more time. So to deprive us any time or access to any equipment would deny the First Amendment. Basically, that's what we did.
There isn't any change, and, there isn't any change, so.
I mean, I used to come every day and learn, but now it seems like we have no points.
You have no points, you're running out of your
Running
points.
out of points. I don't know if they have changed policy, but I used to come every day and I never ran out of points. Now I ran
60
for 2
almost.
months, I come and I say.
51, 52.
Sorry, Barbara, I'll talk to you. But who hasn't spoken yet?
This is a very quick question. This is regarding submitting DVDs. Evidently, the library is having an issue with submitting DVDs as opposed to tapes. When are we going to be able to upload to an FTP site?
Good question.
How soon? What's the time frame?
Well, we hope in a matter of months, quicker rather than sooner. There are a few issues that we have to work out, including the bandwidth problem, because we don't want producers to be waiting around for 6 hours while they upload the show. And we want to make sure that it happens quickly. So in fact, I have a meeting with RCM tomorrow to work on that. So it's a key priority for the organization this year. It will happen this year. I can't tell you exactly when it will, but it will happen.
So what's the issue with submitting DVDs? This is like the
There shouldn't
third time, and
shouldn't be any issue.
I've had,
There's no
they
issue.
haven't aired much.
There's no issue. There should not be any issue airing DVDs. Harold.
Yeah, following up on the thing about Chuck Dolan talking about the overall status of public access, I heard you say that the main problem seems to be not with the cable industry people, it seems to be with the local authorities that assert their ability to have such a thing in their area.
Yeah.
In that regard, shouldn't there be some sort of a public relations effort at singing the praises of public access? And I've mentioned it to other people, particularly the PSA campaign that Brian Lamb launched for C-SPAN, which instead of talking about C-SPAN being created by the cable industry 30 years ago and supported, that public access was created 40 years ago and was supported by the wonderful cable industry in order to get people interested in that in the general society, to nudge some of those town boards to say, hey, let's get that going.
Yeah, that is an important point. It is something that C-SPAN has been very effective at doing. I think that there is an effort, on our part, we have reached out to the cable industry to come and enjoy some of the extraordinary accolades that they would get for funding MNN or public access because they're obviously providing a tremendous community service through that funding.
And so are we.
And
And
so
it's
are
very
we.
democratic, and we don't seem to reach out to the general society in recognizing how important public access as an institution is to the society writ large.
Yes.
Particularly if the bottleneck is at this town board meeting or something where it's not the cable industry, I hear you saying, it's not Chuck Dolan or people who don't like public access or bean counters who want to save some money in the cable industry, it's the town authorities, the local town authorities. I thought I heard you say that.
Yeah, but by saying that, I'm not making the cable industry out to be angelic. They're
Well,
tough.
okay.
They fight for every penny. They try to make sure the regulation is in their favor, and you have to battle every step of the way. The issue is that you have to battle. You need people who are fighting for you in municipalities around the country. But just to your main point about will the cable companies want to come and take some ownership, if you will, or in public access.
Yes,
in terms
and
of
also-
the PR side, and they don't. We invite them to different events that we have in Manhattan and then they don't come.
Okay, just to follow, I don't want to direct, there's tremendous PR value to the industry if they came to recognize, as they have C-SPAN, which is a great service, if they came to recognize that they have supported it, and it's the cable industry that has done it, and particularly in the name of democracy, if there could be public access, there could be public relations value that even be translated to the bottom line by the bean counters to the benefit of the cable companies themselves, is what I'm getting at. Yeah, if you can understand what I'm saying. We don't seem to do that.
No, I know, but part of my answer to you is, I don't think there's interest on the part of the cable companies to be able to reciprocate that.
Oh, I thought I heard you say it was the town boards who was the problem, not the cable industry.
No.
Is the cable industry given up on the idea of public access? There's no need now that we've got the internet and all that, and they don't have to do that anymore like they did since 1970?
Well, they would prefer that outcome, but that's not something.
Some people would.
Cable company has never been friendly
Yeah.
to public access.
Who hasn't, George? Sir?
The cable companies have never.
Some people within the cable industry have been and can see it. They're not all bean counters.
Unfortunately, I can't name.
Yeah, but